Zoom. Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. So today we are going to discuss another important editorial discussion topic, and this topic is very important provided that the government of India has also given its focus to develop this particular sector. Alright, so now let us start the discussion on this topic. The name of the topic is India as a global semiconductor hub. Okay, so the ED topic is that we are discussing, right? It is, name of the topic is India as a global, right? India as a global semiconductor hub. Semiconductor hub. So we need to discuss about this particular topic, India as a global semiconductor hub. This is an editorial discussion topic, and here we are going to discuss about like how semiconductor can be a game-changing sector for India, right? So there are many things. Before that, we need to understand what do we mean by semiconductors, right? What do we mean by semiconductors? So we are going to restrict our discussion, right, so that it matches with the UPSC preparation, because we cannot go into so much scientific thing that most of you may not understand, right? So we need to understand that, like, in electrical circuits or electronic circuits, okay, so let me draw an electronic circuit. In electronic circuits, what happens, right? We use So let's understand this thing. So we will understand this particular circuit briefly, because this circuit will give you an understanding what do we mean by this semiconductor, okay. So if I talk about any electronic circuit like this, in electronic circuit we generally have a battery. Let's say this is a battery or a power source, okay. Battery is like a direct current source. We can also have alternating current source, right? For, let's say, if we want to light up anything, we have a simple circuit like this, and this simple circuit also has a component which is known as conductor, okay. It is known as conductor. Conductor means, conductors are those metals, right, that conduct electricity, that allows the electricity to pass through it. They are known as conductors, okay. So these are conductors, and at the same time, let's say like we see wire, okay. For example, if I take the example of a wire, right, wire looks like this. On the outer layer of the wire, we have some kind of plastic, right? We have plastic. So this is, let's say, this is the example of wire to make you understand. So if I talk about the wire, okay, the wire that we have, so the outer layer of the wire has plastic. So this plastic does not conduct electricity. If we touch the wire from outside, right, so we will not be, let's say, like, get shocked from the electricity that comes, because the wire has a kind of material which acts as insulator, okay. It acts as insulator. Insulator means they do not conduct electricity, they do not conduct electric current. However, inside the wire, we see copper wires, we see aluminum wires. So these copper wires or aluminum wires, what they do, they conduct electricity, okay, they conduct electricity, okay. The copper wires or aluminum wires that we have, they conduct electricity. If you touch a copper wire, or let's say any other metal made wire, right, which is connected with some kind of electric circuit, so you will get shocked. You will get shocked because of electricity, okay. So here, like this particular circuit talks about, like, the wires that we are using. The wires has two components. One is conducting component that conducts the electricity. Other component is that insulates us, right, the insulating component. So between conductors and insulators, there are some differences. Conductors allow the electricity or electrons to pass freely through it, right, and the insulators can be many material. It can be plastic, it can be, let's say, wood, it can be paper, it can be anything. So that does not conduct electricity. So between conductors and let's say, like, insulators, there lies something which is known as semiconductors. Okay, there lies something which is known as semiconductors. So semiconductors, they are, let's say, like, they are used in electronic devices. Okay, semiconductors are used in electronic devices. What is the purpose of semiconductors? These semiconductors, let's say, allow the electricity, they allow the electricity or current, right, to pass through it, to pass through it. So semiconductor allows the electrons or current to pass through it. So if I talk about conductivity of semiconductor, conductivity is generally, right, technically, the conductivity is shown by a symbol sigma. So conductivity of semiconductors is in the middle, right, of that of insulator and conductors. Okay, so its conductivity lies between, right, conductors and insulators. Means the conductors conduct electricity at a very high speed, means like it allows the electricity to pass through it easily. Insulators does not allow the electricity to pass through it. There lies something semiconductor that allows, let's say, moderate limit, means like it allows the electricity to pass through it, but like, not as good as conductors. However, semiconductors does have many properties which make it, right, which make it, let's say, like, applicable for many industrial applications. For example, if I talk about mobile phones that we use, the mobile phones that we use or laptops that we use. So inside the laptops, inside the mobile phones, we do have integrated circuits. What we have inside laptops and mobile phones, we have something which is known as ICs. ICs stands for integrated circuits. Okay, ICs stands for integrated circuits. So these integrated circuits, inside it has many logic gates. What it has? It has many logic gates. It may be having transistors. Okay, it may be having transistors. These transistors are of different type. One of the transistor type is known as bipolar junction transistor. Okay, which is known as BJT. BJT stands for bipolar junction transistor. Okay, bipolar junction transistor. Then we have MOSFET. Okay, MOSFET. Bipolar junction transistor BJT can be of different types, right? Then MOSFET. MOSFET stands for metal oxide semiconductor. Okay, it stands for metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor. Okay, field effect transistor. So these MOSFETs are electronic devices like, that employ some kind of logic for allowing the electricity or currents to pass through it. So the let's say, like, the integrated circuits or logic gates or transistors or, let's say, diodes, right? Diodes, they are some of the applications of semiconductors. Means we use semiconductors as, let's say, like, some of the conducting material inside these devices, these gadgets that we use, mobile phones, laptops, and in these devices we have different kind of components. Those components are known as diodes, those components are known as logic gates, these components are known as integrated circuits, they are known as transistors, right? These transistors can be of different types. For example, bipolar junction transistor, we can have metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor, then we have like N MOSFET, we have P MOSFET, P channel MOSFET. So these all are, let's say, applications, these are examples of those devices that are used in our, let's say, like, electronic components. So what makes the semiconductor to be, let's say, usable for these components? There are many properties of semiconductors. Okay, so we are going to talk about those properties also of semiconductor. Okay, so what are the properties of semiconductors? So we are going to understand this thing quickly so that, like, we can understand about the broader picture. Okay, so we are going to discuss about properties of semiconductors. Okay, properties of semiconductors. The first property that we are going to discuss is conductivity. Okay, the first property is known as conductivity. Conductivity means the ability of the semiconductor to allow the electric current to pass through it. So the conductivity of a semiconductor lies between, okay, this conductivity lies between conductors and insulators, okay, conductors and insulators. Conductors are those metals that allow the electrons, the electronic current to pass through it. Insulators are those materials that do not allow the current to pass through it. Semiconductors are something that has the conductivity that lies in the range between conductors and semiconductors. Okay. Now, second property that we are going to talk about semiconductors is, like, there are different types of semiconductors. Okay, let's discuss about types also, and for that, like, we need to understand some more things. Okay, so let's discuss quickly about types, because like we are not going to go deeper into this. One of the
just a small question, sir. Like how this intermediary properties between conductor and insulator is so much, helpful in application in electronic devices or gadgets?
See, like semiconductors are those materials. I mean, like, if I talk about, so for that we need to understand about conductors, right? So the person who is attending offline, he has a question, and this question he asks that, like, what makes the semiconductors to be so much applicable for industrial uses. So the thing is, like, we need to understand about conductors first. So conductors are those materials that are bulky in size, okay, that are bulky in size. Semiconductors has a property that, like, semiconductors have a small size and they can show conductivity because of the size effect. Means semiconductors, I mean, like carbon dots, so that's also.
Question was in reference to this property, conductivity, like how the intermediary conductivity of semiconductor is helpful.
To that question, the thing is, like, the question is how the intermediary conductivity of semiconductor is helpful for using in electronic circuits. See, the intermediary conductivity that I am talking about in semiconductors, this is not fixed. I mean, like, fixed in the sense, like, we can have different types of semiconductors, and these different types of semiconductors have different doping level, and this allows that particular conductivity to be molded according to the application that we need. For example, like, if I talk about the types of the semiconductors, so we can have one type of semiconductor to be p-type semiconductor, or, like, before going to this, we need to understand that semiconductors can be broadly classified into two kinds. One is known as intrinsic semiconductor. One is intrinsic semiconductor. Second is known as extrinsic semiconductor. Extrinsic semiconductor. So one is intrinsic semiconductor, other is extrinsic semiconductor. Intrinsic semiconductors are those materials that show semiconducting properties by default, right? So examples of those materials are silicon or germanium, okay, silicon, germanium, etc. So they have by default they are semiconductor material. However, we can also create semiconductor material by adding some kind of impurities into the semiconductors, okay. So adding the impurities to the semiconductors make it this process, the process of adding impurities in a semiconductor, okay, adding impurities in a semiconductor is known as doping, okay, is known as doping. This process is known as doping. So doping is done like when we add a material, for example, when we add a material that has more number of electrons, okay, that has more number of electrons, that makes it N type of semiconductor. The one that has less number of electrons, means like less number of electrons, is also known as like having more holes. So that makes it P type semiconductor, okay, that makes P type semiconductor. That makes it P type of semiconductors. So we do have different types of semiconductors. Intrinsic semiconductor, if these semiconductors are added with some impurities, they become extrinsic semiconductor, and like we have N type semiconductor, P type semiconductor. So semiconductors, I mean like, you know, we add different type of doping thing into the semiconductor so that we can mold how they can conduct electricity. If we want them to conduct more electricity, so like we will be adding those kind of impurities. There are different types of semiconductors. For example, like, you know, we have germanium arsenide. One of the example of semiconductors would be
Sir, like N and P, I missed it. Like, which one did you say that has more conductivity?
generally the N type will be having more conductivity as like, you know, as compared to P type. Okay, N type will be having more conductivity as compared to P type, means like this one will be having more conductivity, because here the electrons are directly moving. The absence of electron is known as presence of hole. Let's say like inside a semiconductor, let's say this is the semiconductor, these are electrons, let's say these are electrons. So wherever an electron is absent, let's say like, you know, an electron is absent here, so this absence of electrons is known as presence of hole. Okay, it's known as presence of hole. Okay, so this is known as, let's say, hole. So wherever like we are adding an impurity that has more number of electron, so that will be making this kind of semiconductor to be N type, and it will be having more conductivity as compared to P type. And generally we add the impurities for multiple purposes. One thing is for increasing the conductivity of the semiconductor. Second thing is for changing the property of the semiconductor, so that like, let's say, it can withstand temperature and all. So for those purposes also we use different types of semiconductors. Okay.
So this hole will act like a resistance to conductivity or what? Or will it enhance the conductivity, like the flow of electron? What's the role of hole in this?
See, like role of hole, basically like, you know, whenever we are adding an impurity, it is going to add to the conductivity. Okay, it is going to add to the conductivity, but like to what extent it is going to aid in the conductivity, it depends on like how much impurity is present. Means like if we have more impurity, for example, if we have more number of electrons, so it will lead to more electronic conduction. If we have less number of electrons, in that case it will lead to lesser number of, let's say, like, you know, lesser conductivity in that case. And also like we do have logic gates. Using logic gates, what we do is, like using logic gates, we can mold the conductivity. Let's say we can let's say perform different operations on it, right? So I mean like that is like, you know, going into deeper into that level. However, P type semiconductors has presence of holes. So the thing is like, to understand the semiconductors, we need to understand one simple structure, right? One simple structure, or like I would draw a diagram for it. Let's understand this diagram. Let's say inside a semiconductor, let's say, let me draw this diagram, right? Inside a semiconductor, there are electrons that are able to freely move. Some of the electrons are at a level that like they will stay at that level. Let's say like some of the electrons are at this level. And some electrons are at excited level. So those electrons that are at this energy level, they are able to move freely, and other electrons that are attached inside the atom, right? So attached inside the atom, they are not able to move freely. So the quantity of electrons that is available in the conduction bond, so this determines like, you know, what will be the conductivity of the semiconductor. Generally what happens, like, you know, if you excite this particular energy level, so we can have thermal conductivity also. Thermal conductivity means if we increase the temperature of the semiconductor, some of the electrons may get excited, it will go to the next energy level, and from the energy level, let's say like, you know, from here it will be able to conduct freely. So like we do have a diagram. This diagram explains like, you know, how the conductivity of semiconductors can be increased, okay, how it can be increased. So this is how what happens, like let's say inside the semiconductors. However, we need to understand this is called energy band structure of the semiconductor. Doping means adding impurities to the semiconductor. And what are the applications of semiconductor? So if I talk about the applications of semiconductor, did we discuss about applications? Yes.
Like in indirect sense, like in electronic devices.
Yeah, in electronic devices we are using semiconductors, and these semiconductors make these devices function differently. Okay, means like we do have various things associated with this. So what can be the applications of semiconductors? Let's discuss about applications. The semiconductors are used as ICs, integrated circuits, in let's say smartphones and laptops or digital devices. Okay, smartphones, laptops and digital devices. This is one of the application of semiconductor. Semiconductors can be used as diodes. Okay, can be used as diodes. So these diodes may be used for, let's say, like you might have heard about light emitting diodes, LEDs, right? So what they do, they show the property of optical luminescence. Okay, they property show optical luminescence. They show properties like optical luminescence. Then semiconductors can be used, right? Semiconductor can be used as transistors also. Can be used as transistors in electronic devices. Okay, in electronic devices. So these transistors can be used for many purposes. One of the purposes amplification of the signal that comes, right? For as amplifier, it can be used as amplification devices also, transistors. So there are different components that can be made using semiconductors. These are some of the examples: the ICs, diodes, transistors, etc. Okay, transistors, I have given example of bipolar junction transistor, BJTs, right? Then we have field effect transistor, FETs. Then we have metal oxide, so this MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistors. So these can be some of the examples of transistors, and they have further subdivisions of these things. Okay, so these are some of the, let's say, potential applications. So mainly it is used in digital devices that we use nowadays, be it mobile phone, be it tablet, be it let's say laptop, etc. So it is used there. So now let us understand that, like, how this semiconductor thing is going to help India, right? How this semiconductor thing is going to help India. So, like, why is the need for promoting semiconductor industry so much? Okay, so the thing is, we need to answer this: why we are promoting, okay, why we are promoting, why the government is promoting semiconductor industry, promoting the semiconductor manufacturing in India. Semiconductor manufacturing in India. Why the government is promoting this? So let's answer this question. First of all, right, to answer this question, we need to understand that India, right, India is majorly, right, it is a big market. India is a big market for those companies that are producing mobile phones, right, for the multinational companies that are producing mobile phones, that are producing laptops and all. So since India is a big market, we have a huge, right, we have a huge consumer base. Okay, we have a huge consumer base. So what was happening? Because we have huge consumer base, and it led to huge amount of imports of these goods. Okay, so India was heavily reliant, right, we are still heavily reliant on imports of these goods. Like, these things are being imported from outside. Since it is imported from outside, so what happens? The cash flow, right, the money flow happens outside, okay. So cash flow happens outside, means like, we pay to other people for the goods that are being imported in India, right? So that's why government of India has envisaged, right, that like we need to curb the import dependence, okay. So we need to come out of import dependence, okay. We need to come out of import dependence on these things. And how can we come out of the import dependence? It is through, let's say, establishing, right? It is through establishing our own, right? Establishing our own, right? Factories, establishing manufacturing units, okay? Establishing manufacturing units. But the thing is, like, when we talk about these semiconductors are made so small, these semiconductors are very small in size. So manufacturing of these semiconductor is not similar to manufacturing other goods, right? For this, we need huge research and development support. We need, let's say, like semiconductor fabrication labs, okay? We need semiconductor fabrication labs, okay? This is known as semiconductor fabrication labs. In short, it is known as fabs, right? You might have read articles there, they mention fabs. It means semiconductor fabrication labs. So the thing is, like, it needs huge amount of R&D, it needs semiconductor fabrication labs, and it also needs huge investment, right? Huge amount of investment in one go for setting up those semiconductor related thing. So for that purpose, so far, I mean, like, we were import dependent, like people or MNCs outside. So they were, what they were doing, they were manufacturing these they were manufacturing the mobile phones, they were manufacturing the laptop. We were simply importing those components. But later on, Government of India has applied some, let's say, constraints to them. They have applied some eligibility condition that, like, we are not going to import the entire product, and for that the Government of India, initially what it has done, Government of India has applied some kind of restrictions, okay, restrictions. How restrictions have been applied? By imposing, okay, by imposing more tax, okay, by imposing import duties, right, by imposing huge import duties on it. So the thing is, those people who are importing, let's say, like, a laptop which is a mobile phone which is available in outside market at, let's say, 10,000 rupees, okay, equivalent to 10,000 rupees outside. If Government of India applies 400% tax on it, it becomes 500, let's say 50,000 rupees mobile phone. So, like, importing them would be difficult for Indian people, and those people who are manufacturing outside, for them to sell in Indian market, it becomes, let's say, very costly, because it will not be sold in the market easily. So for that purpose, Government of India has said that, like, you need to establish your own manufacturing unit in India. But for manufacturing the semiconductor related thing, it needs, like already we discussed, it needs huge amount of R&D, it needs semiconductor fabrication labs and all. So it was a huge investment related thing, and it was not easy to do it initially. So Government of India has talked about that, like, at least you can assemble the products here, okay. Government said that, like, government has given a way forward to these industries, okay. Way forward in the sense, how way forward? Government said, like, if you want to send or sell your product here, you need to assemble these products in India, okay. You need to assemble these products in India. And if you are assembling these products in India, what will happen? For assembling, they need to establish factories, okay. They need to establish factories in India. And if they establish factories in India, right, they need to, let's say, like, employ our people. They need to employ people. So it will lead to creation of, it will lead to job creation. So initially, I mean, like, in 2017, when this idea was being promoted, that point of time, the Raghuram Rajan was the governor. Raghuram Rajan was the governor of RBI, and he has suggested that, like, if you are asking these companies only to do assembling thing, like, by importing the components and doing assembling here in India, you will be only landing up in, let's say, like, giving jobs to less skilled people. Only less skilled people will be getting jobs, and actually the components will be made outside, and like your market will be exposed to the outside thing. However, at that point of time, the Minister of Electronics, like, meaty minister from the Ministry of Electronics and this thing, information technology, okay. So that minister has, let's say, like, got annoyed with the RBI governor. He said, like, we will establish. So they have established this thing. They have allowed only the assembly companies to be established in India. So as of now, we do have assembly companies, like, those companies are importing the raw material from China, they are importing the raw material from other jurisdiction, and they are just assembling the mobile phones, they are assembling laptops here, and they are selling it into the market. Although it has created huge number of jobs in India, however, other sectors did not benefit much from this. I mean, like, if we would have gone for creation of fabrication lab, creation of R&D infrastructure, that would have created more jobs for our engineers, that would have created more market, because, like, so every activity in the economy has ripple effects also.
Like they are saying, the experts are saying that we need ecosystem approach.
Right.
The entire ecosystem should be created, right from the conception of design to the manufacturing of.
Right. So, right, yes. So, like, experts are saying that the entire ecosystem should be created. As of now, this is just a one fits, let's say, a fitting approach. So that's why Government of India, the Prime Minister of India recently had a conclave which is known as Semicon India Conclave. Okay, it is Semicon India Conclave. So this particular conclave means meeting of, let's say, like, high level people. So the Prime Minister of India has interacted with the leaders of multinational companies, CEOs of multinational companies, and leaders of countries, various countries, right? He has interacted, and he has asked those people to invest in India, right? To invest in semiconductor sector in India, okay? To invest in semiconductors business in India, okay? So some of these, like some of the companies that are, let's say, like world leaders, they have said that we are going to establish factories in India and we are going to create it. So this Semicon India Conclave is a booster for the, let's say, economic activity related to semiconductor field. So down the line, in the next 3 to 5 years, we may see that semiconductor manufacturing companies or fabrication labs are also established in India. Okay, these fabrication labs will be made in India soon, and after this we will be able to establish these things. However, like, how it is going to, like, the question that arised, that why we are promoting the semiconductor manufacturing in India so much. One reason is it will lead to technological innovation, okay. So this particular thing, why we are promoting. So for this, like, there will be many answers. One of the answer will be, it will lead to technological, okay, it will lead to technological innovation, okay. So those countries that invest money in innovation, those countries actually tend to make up more money, okay. So it will also lead to economic growth, okay, it will lead to economic growth, okay. This particular thing, I mean, like, if we do technological innovation, if we establish manufacturing labs in India, so it will lead to economic growth. And after then, it will also, let's say, make India globally competitive, okay. So it will enhance global competitiveness for India, okay, global competitiveness for India. Means so far, India has been acting as a market where, like, people in other countries, they were manufacturing their goods, they were selling it in India, they were generating profit from India. However, with this, like, Indian government and India is also going to get benefited, right? We are going to get benefited. So it's going to increase global competitiveness, and it's also going to create job, okay? It will lead to job creation. And job creation has been a major challenge for Government of India. Recently we have seen that there were reports from the National Statistical Organization, National Statistical Office, and like there was a report of Periodic Labor Force Survey, okay, PLFS, that says that unemployment rate in India, right, unemployment rate in India has crossed, right, has crossed 45 years, okay, 45 years limit. Means like we have huge amount of unemployment in India. So that's why this job creation is very important, because now India is the largest country in the world that has the highest population, okay. We have even surpassed China, okay. So like we have the highest population in the world. So the highest amount of population, we should give them some kind of economic opportunity. We need to create skills for them so that like they become assets for the economy that we are growing. They should not become liabilities, okay. For that we need to educate them, we need to skill them so that they take up different roles in the economy. So this is known as, let's say, harnessing the potential of population dividend, okay. So this is like harnessing the potential of population dividend, means like the composition of your population should be in such a manner that more number of people are in the working age, and at the same time they should be in the working, okay. So yes, Akhil has said like it will prevent brain drain, right, definitely. So this will prevent brain drain, because we have seen that many people who graduate from topmost institutions like IITs, IIMs, they prefer to go outside and work outside in India, outside India. Why? Because they get more recognition outside, they get more salary, and they get established life. But here in India, many people who are graduating from IITs, NITs, they do not, end up getting good opportunities. They do not get good, let's say, jobs. So that's why most of the, let's say, skilled people are also staying unemployed. So this particular move will prevent brain drain also. It will prevent brain drain, okay. And for this, like for this, let's say, so we are talking about like why we need to go for this particular step. So it also says that it will also enhance research and development, okay. It will enhance research and development in semiconductor sector, okay, in semiconductor sector. And if more research and development happens, we will be innovating more products, and our companies, our institutions, they will be getting more patent right, okay. So we will see more patent applications, okay, patent applications. So many of you who do not know what is patent, so patents are part of intellectual property rights. They are known as IPRs. So there are various types of intellectual property right. One of the type of intellectual property right is patent. Then like we can have geographical indication tag. Then we have, let's say, industrial design, okay. We have industrial design. We have trade secrets, right? We have trade secrets. So there are many types of, let's say, intellectual property rights, and we do have a very good ecosystem in India that allows people to apply for different types of intellectual property rights. So these patent rights, let's say there is a company that has innovated some product, marketable product. So this particular company may apply for patent rights once it gets those rights. So these companies will be having right for 20 years on that product, on that service that it may builds, right, marketable product, okay. So patents are given two types, okay. Patents are of two types. I am just discussing all the aspects so that you can connect. So one of the patent is known as process patent, okay, process patent. Other is known as product patent, okay, product patent. Process patent means if you are developing a new product, right, if you have done R&D on a new product, the process that you have followed for manufacturing or making that product, you can get that process itself patented, okay. You can get that process patented, and for that, like India, like you can go to a patent office, you can file your claim that like we want to get our process patented. Once they allow that that thing, right, once they give you, so like you will be having right. So that company can solely manufacture the goods using that particular process, or that company may ask for royalty for giving license to other companies or organization to manufacture the similar goods using this process. Apart from this, the final product that they are making, so they can get the product also patented, okay? So that patent application, this will also increase. So it's ultimately going to give boost to the Indian economy. So Indian economy is going to grow, okay? And with this, what will happen, like, you know, if we, like, why we need to, let's say, like, you know, why do we need to go for domestic manufacturing of this thing? Because it will create an ecosystem for R&D, okay, R&D ecosystem that I have already written. Apart from this, it's like, you know, emerging technologies. So we will be able to work on emerging technologies in these areas, okay. So there are many technologies that are coming up new and new. So we need to foster, right, a kind of ecosystem for doing this particular thing, okay. Now, having understood this, let us understand about this thing, the significance of domestic. So let's understand about the significance of domestic, okay. Semiconductor making, significance, let's, okay. So we are going to understand about the significance of domestic semiconductor manufacturing for India. So what can be the significance? One of the thing is like it is going to reduce dependence on imports, okay. One of the thing is like it will reduce our dependence on imports of semiconductors or imports of mobile phones. If semiconductor manufacturing labs are here in India, semiconductor fabrication labs, we will be able to manufacture the components, we will be able to manufacture the final products also, mobile phones, laptops and all, and these will be sold in the market. So people who are manufacturing this, they are going to get benefited, and people who are going to purchase it, they are going to purchase at low cost because there will not be any import duty related to it, okay. So that's going to help the Indian economy because it does have many other rippling effect also. It's going to create jobs also, okay, that's the thing. So second thing is like, you know, it is going to help us in creating jobs. So job creation is a very, very important thing. Recently you might have heard about that the Hyderabad, like the Chief Minister of Telangana, I mean like he has invited many multinational companies to establish their let's say factories in Hyderabad, and they are incentivizing those companies who are setting up their factories in Hyderabad. Why? Because their people are going to get jobs, okay, that's the thing. So other innovation is it is going to promote innovation, okay, it is going to promote innovation that we have already talked, right, it's going to promote innovation. Then we have strength, it's going to strengthen national security. How? Because it is connected. For example, I'll explain about this thing. It's going to strengthen our national security as well. It's connected with national security somehow. Because for national security, let's say like, you know, for defense related equipments, I'll give you an example related to this. There are many defense related equipments. If I talk about high end, right, we do have high end helicopters, right, helicopters, and many of these helicopters have, let's say, cameras, night vision camera, they have, let's say, many components in it, and most of these things are manufactured outside India. For example, India has partnered with Israel. Israel is one of the, let's say, defense partners for India, and from Israel what we are doing, we are importing the technologies that they have manufactured there. So Israel works as a R&D lab for India, and India works as a factory. We are doing, let's say, manufacturing in bulk in India. So defense related equipments, like once we become self-reliant, once we become self-dependent related to semiconductor, we will be able to, let's say, like build our technologies, right, defense related technologies, communication related technologies that are used by security forces on our own. So it's going to strengthen our national security related aspect also. Then like there are other part also related to this, that why we want it. So it's going to attract foreign investment also, okay, it's going to attract foreign investment. Okay, it's going to attract foreign investment in this sector. It's going to attract foreign investment. Okay, so is it understood the significance? Now let's discuss about why there is a global race to diversify semiconductor supply. Okay, this is also a good heading. Why there is a global race to diversify, okay, to diversify why there is a global race to diversify semiconductor, okay, to diversify semiconductor supply chains, okay, semiconductor supply chains. This is also important for us to understand that like what has happened during COVID-19. Most of the economic activities were put on hold. Why? Because let's say like we stopped doing any import, we stopped doing any export because we wanted to isolate our people so that they do not die because of pandemic. Okay, so the COVID-19 pandemic has showcased, right, the COVID-19 pandemic has showcased the bottlenecks that exist in the supply chain, in the global supply chain. So that's why like now we want to, let's establish our own thing, right, related to this. Then there is a US-China trade war that is happening. Okay, US and China trade war. Okay, and China trade war. Trade war means it is not a kind of physical war. The United States of America keeps on putting sanction on any country that seems to be working against USA. Okay, so they have put sanction on India also earlier. It has now put sanction on Russia. It has earlier put sanction on USA. It continuously, let's say, works against China. Okay, so trade war is happening between these two countries, and the arena of trade war is World Trade Organization. Okay, so many a times USA files cases against China in WTO, China files cases in WTO, and China is one of the leading countries that manufactures semiconductor related equipments, right? And that's why from China, right, so we have been importing the things from China, from USA also, but now since this particular trade war is happening, so many a times because of this trade war, the price of the semiconductor products fluctuates in the international market. Okay, so we want to avoid this thing also. And apart from this, the rise of China, okay, like we want to, let's say, address the issue of rise of China, means China is rising because of its many initiatives that it has taken. Okay, China is one of the leading countries that does R&D. For example, if I talk about 5G, right, 5G, like India has taken so much time for introduction of a 5G policy. Still like we do not have 5G that are available to the common citizens like us. But if I talk about USA, if I talk about China, they do have 5G functioning in their economies, right? Because like one of the state-owned company of China, which is known as Huawei, okay? So this, so spelling is something like this, okay? So one of the state-owned company, which is, I mean like it can be considered to be a government entity, right? So that has created technology related to 5G, and they have also exported that technology to USA. USA is using China's technology for providing 5G internet connectivity. India has stopped this particular thing from coming to India. Why? Because we did not want to use the components that are made by China, because we wanted to like manufacture it our own. So far 4G is happening in India, we are using 4G related things, okay? So, and also like why, because there is another reason, because there is a global rise in demand, okay, rise in demand of semiconductor. There is a rise of demand in semiconductors. Why? Because like most of the countries in the world, like few countries in the world have gone so much high tech. For example, the USA, China, Russia, India. So some of the countries have, let's say, gone to the high level of technological innovation. Majority of the countries in the world do not have access, right, to these high-end technologies. And if India becomes a, let's say, manufacturing hub for these technologies, right, so we will be able to export our semiconductor products, our, let's say, products that we are making in India. First of all, we will be able to cater to the demand of Indian economy. In India, huge number of people are demanding this thing. We will be able to cater to their requirement, and at the same time, we will be able to, let's say, meet the demand of the global market. Okay, so that's why also it is needed. Okay, so that's why also it is needed. Now we are going to talk about what are the initiatives related to semiconductors in the world. Okay, so we are going to discuss about global initiatives. Okay, global initiatives. Just a minute. So we are going to discuss about global initiatives related to semiconductors. Okay, global initiatives related to semiconductors. So what are initiatives that different countries have taken? The European Union has taken Digital Compass and Digital Europe program. Okay, so like there are different countries. One of the countries, European Union, let's say it's a group of multiple countries. So they have, let's say, two programs. One of the program is known as Digital Compass. Okay, Digital Compass. Other is known as Digital Europe. Okay, other is known as Digital Europe. So these programs of the European Union, they promote, right, what they do? They promote manufacturing of, okay, they promote manufacturing of semiconductors, right? They promote manufacturing of semiconductors in Europe. So European Union already has a law that allows this particular thing. If I talk about the United States of America, USA, they have a CHIPS Act. Which act? They have CHIPS Act. So what is CHIPS Act? CHIPS Act like of the United States of America is about creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors. Okay, it is known as creating helpful, okay, helpful incentives to produce semiconductors. Creating helpful incentives to produce semiconductors in America, for America Act. Okay, semiconductors for America Act. So the United States of America has created an act for themselves which is known as CHIPS Act, and through this act they want to promote those industries, those companies that are manufacturing, right, semiconductor related products, right, that are manufacturing, that are producing semiconductor related product. In India also we have recently had this Semicon India conclave where we have talked about it. We may soon come up with an act related to it that promotes this thing. But the government of India, like if I talk about India, right, Indian government has this particular thing which is known as PLI scheme. PLI scheme means production linked incentive scheme. Those companies that are producing semiconductor related thing, right, whether they are domestic companies or foreign companies, right, for India. So these companies will be given benefits, right, provided that foreign companies have their branches in India, right. So this production linked incentive scheme is existing in India, and the biggest beneficiary of this thing is the, let's say, like semiconductor making companies from outside, those mobile making companies. And apart from this, there are other countries also. For example, China has National Integrated Circuit Industry Development Guidelines. Okay, China does have a similar guideline for itself, right. Apart from this, there are countries, for example, Japan, South Korea, right, Japan, South Korea.
Sir, are these like global initiatives by different countries important to remember?
these are initiatives by these countries for promoting their R&D in their own jurisdiction.
Sir, I'm asking like, is it important to remember all these initiatives?
No, it's not important. Some of them you need to remember. For example, you can remember the CHIPS thing, CHIPS Act of USA, the European Union. China one is important. Why China? Because China is one of our rival. You can remember their name. It is National Integrated Circuit Industry Development Guidelines. Okay, National Integrated Circuit, National Integrated. Okay, National Integrated Circuit Industry Guideline. Industry guidelines. So this is of China, okay, National Integrated Circuit Industry Guideline. So it actually helps us to understand that those countries who have progressed in the field of semiconductors, so they have come up with their own policy, they have come up with their own act that incentivizes their own industry, that incentivizes their country, right? Even Singapore has similar to this. Singapore says electronics industry transformation map. Taiwan has national development strategy for the semiconductor industry. We know that like from Taiwan also we import a lot of semiconductor related components. Then there is a global partnership also which is known as Global Semiconductor Alliance, okay. So there is a global partnership of different countries, okay, global partnership. This is known as Global Semiconductor Alliance, Global Semiconductor Alliance, GSA, Global Semiconductor Alliance. So these are the things that are, let's say, like, you know, that helps us understanding that those countries who have progressed in the field of semiconductor making, these countries does have a legislation that promotes this thing. For example, the European Union, USA, China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, even Taiwan, like, you know, we import a lot of things from Taiwan, which is a very small, let's say, small territory. Although like many people consider it to not be an independent country, because like, you know, China has a one China policy under which like it considers Taiwan to be its own part. However, Taiwan sees itself as an independent sovereign nation, right? So this is a, let's say, like, you know, ongoing challenge that is happening. Apart from this, we are going to understand what are the challenges for semiconductor supply chain in India, right? So we are going to discuss about challenges of semiconductor supply chain in India. Semiconductor supply chain in India. So what can be the challenges? There are multiple challenges that India faces, okay. So one of the thing is like we have lack of, okay, we have lack of semiconductor fabs, okay, lack of semiconductor fabs. What is fabs? I have already talked about fabrication labs, okay. Fabs stands for fabrication lab. Okay, so we do have lack of semiconductor fabrication labs, and to address this particular issue, the Prime Minister of India has conducted the Semicon India Conclave, okay, Semicon India Conclave, where like he has talked about, right, where he has talked about that like we want to, right, we want to create good environment for those companies that want to invest in semiconductor manufacturing or that want to invest in semiconductor fabrication labs, right. So this is one of the things. So we have lack of semiconductor fabrication labs in India. Second thing is like we have lack of technological expertise at this point of time, okay, lack of technological expertise. We do have lot of engineers, let's say, who have graduated, post-graduated, did their PhDs in this particular sector. However, these people, since they did not get job timely, many of those people are out of, let's say, like out of touch related to these things. So we need to go for more technological expertise also. Then infrastructure related thing is also there, okay, infrastructure. So it will be taken up, I think like these things will be taken up sooner or later by the government of India. These things are being addressed also. Then we do have intellectual property and patent related issues, okay. So we have IPR related issues, okay, IPR issues. Because many countries feel it that the intellectual property rights are not properly taken care of in India, because like we do not have a robust mechanism. What happens, we do have a law, we do have different offices in India that gives patent rights, that give intellectual property rights. However, once you apply, there is huge delay, right, in awarding of patent, in awarding of this thing. That delay is because of, let's say, regulatory hurdles in these things, okay. So that patent related issues are there. However, Government of India has been working related to it, because Government of India has signed this TRIPS agreement, okay, TRIPS agreement, which is known as trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. So under World Trade Organization, we have an organization which is known as World Intellectual Property Organization. It is known as WIPO. India is a signatory to it, right? India is signatory to the TRIPS agreement also. Apart from this, like we have, let's say, issues related to investment and funding, okay? We have issues related to investment and funding in this sector, okay? Investment and funding. So far, the private sector in India has not participated well, they have not participated deeply to invest in this particular sector. That's why Government of India is promoting that, like, foreign companies should invest in manufacturing or creation of fabrication labs of semiconductor related products in India. So that's another problem. And so we do have regulatory problem as well in India. So regulatory and environmental problems, okay. So regulatory and environmental issues. Regulatory in the sense, like, people need to apply for so many kind of different certificates in India to establish any new business. For that, Government of India has come up with ease of doing business, single window clearance. Lot of things are in place. However, those things to become effective, like, government should be more robust. An environmental clearance related thing, like, Government of India has talked about single window clearance related to environmental aspects also. So like last year, I think in 2020, Government of India has amended the environmental related things, where some of the companies, I mean, like, if they want to start a manufacturing lab, they need environmental this clearance, okay. This is environmental, I'm forgetting the name. No, e-waste is like, there should be an environmental study, okay. So that environmental clearance is needed initially. EIA. Huh. Yeah. So this EIA related thing, right, environmental impact assessment, I mean, like, this is needed for those companies that are going to establish something in earlier forested areas. So that environmental impact assessment related things have also been relaxed by the Government of India by amending many provisions related to it. And other issues that the Government of India has recently addressed, okay. Recently the Government of India has also addressed, like, they have amended, okay, Government of India has amended many, let's say, many like, e-commerce or commerce related laws. They have amended many commerce related laws, right, where they have decriminalized. What they have done, they have decriminalized many, let's say, like, many acts where earlier, let's say, for commercial transaction, earlier it was considered to be a criminal offense. Now they have decriminalized more than 123, 127 around, let's say, like, provisions in various like, government related thing, I mean, like business related transaction and all. So the Ministry of Commerce, they have taken this particular initiative. So it's going to boost that particular thing. So these challenges, okay, these challenges are being addressed, okay. So if I talk about way forward is like we have been side by side discussing. One thing is like, let's discuss about way forward related to this. So what can be done further? One thing is that we need to create, right? We need to create more business friendly environment, okay, business friendly environment in India. How business friendly environment can be created? By further working on, okay, by further working on ease of doing business, right? Ease of doing business. Second thing is by easing the lending facilities, okay, by easing the lending facilities. Lending means the banks, let's say like, there is an industrialist who want to start a factory, let's say a factory. So if they need money, if they need, let's say like, loans, so that lending facility should be made better, okay, it can be made better by the government. So like, that will be thing. Then like we need to address the regulatory, okay, we need to address the regulatory hurdles, okay, the regulatory hurdles. Apart from this, we need to incentivize, okay, we need to incentivize more, incentivize industries, right, we need to incentivize industries and MSMEs, okay, MSMEs for starting something, some work related to semiconductors, okay. So some work related to semiconductors. So how we have started in incentivizing them? Already we do have a program which is production linked incentives scheme, which is known as PLI scheme. So any company that are involved in the manufacturing of these things, they are given tax rebates. Tax rebates in the sense like, the government of India, whereas like they are charging 28%, 18% in other goods and services, they are charging 5%, or let's say in some cases nil also. So they are charging very less taxes on these areas, okay. So these are the things like, that we need to address. There can be many other things here like, infrastructure development related thing can be addressed. R&D innovation, like, government of India can bring together many private and government entities together. One of the thing is like, this National Research Foundation that we have talked about. So this thing can be a game changer because like, it can, let's say, foster into the development of semiconductor related things also. We have discussed in last class related to National Research Foundation, where government of India has passed a bill in the parliament. Then we can go for skill development in this sector, okay, we can go for skill development also. Skill development and awareness generation, so that like, people with lesser skills can also get skilled in this sector and they can get jobs in this area. Then government support and policy should be there. So government has started giving support. Environmental sustainability related thing, then we can think of doing market development. So market is already developed in India in the sense like, there is huge demand, okay, huge demand of semiconductor related products in India. However, there are many countries, for example, African countries, right, South American countries. So there, like, markets, like in those markets, there is still huge demand. If we start manufacturing these things, we can export our goods, right, to those countries, right. So this is all in this. So with this, like, we do have some questions that you need to write and answer on in your free time. One of the question is, what are the major challenges faced by India? I'm writing this question for you. What are the major challenges for India? What are the major challenges for India? Right? What are the major challenges faced by India in its journey towards? Okay, challenges faced by India. Right on. Challenges faced by India in its journey towards becoming a global semiconductor hub. Becoming a global semiconductor hub, right? You need to discuss. So write this answer in 150 words, a short answer. It will be a 10-marker question. Then we have another question. I'll be giving 2 questions. So in your free time, you can write an answer to these questions. You can share it with us. I'll be sharing my email address also for that. Second question, how has the Indian government supported? How has the Indian government supported? How has the Indian government supported the growth of semiconductor industry? The growth of semiconductor industry in the country. In the country. Also write an answer to this question in about 150 words. They are short questions, right? And once you write an answer to these questions, share your answer with me. I'm going to evaluate and share back. I have received a few answers from the previous ED class that I had. I'm still I'm yet to evaluate those answers. I'm going to share the, let's say, evaluated copy back to the same email IDs, right? So this is my email address, Jahidul@lukmaanias.com. After writing an answer, you can share it to me, Jahidul, Jahidul @lukmaanias.com. I'm going to evaluate and I'm going to share my, let's say, evaluated copy with you. So Akhil has written so many things, challenges of 24/7 power supply in different states. Yes, that's a challenge. Increased incentives for private sector, that can be done by the government. Then we should have national action plan for semiconductor industry, right? So a lot of things are there, a lot of initiatives can be taken by the government. So any questions for me today? I mean, like, I have not discussed in detail about the semiconductors and all, because that will become a truly science and tech topic, because like we need to discuss about p-type semiconductor, n-type semiconductor, holes, electrons, then their components, light emitting diodes and all. So that would be very technical, because like we are preparing for civil services, we need to look into the broad aspects, not the deeper aspects of it, right, related to this. Yes. Any questions from online people? Okay then, thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. I hope you might have understood some concepts related to it. So hope to see you in the next editorial discussion class. That's all from my side for the day. You have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Sir, I have written
Recording stop.